75 this year. I just think we've just got to realize we've got this one-way ticket. And we've just got to be courageous to that an interesting life is the most important thing we can possibly have. And therefore, we've got to reimagine what is wealth and what is success. And when I asked an Aboriginal woman a couple of weeks ago, what is wealth, what is success? She said, wealth is your knowledge. Success is how well you share your knowledge with others. And to me, I think that is not a bad way of actually looking at it. So one's entire life is to acquire knowledge that is useful.
Hey, it's Cowboy and Mark coming at you again with BizUnLearned, and we are on episode 16, moving forward. We got a really interesting guest for you today, where we have shared some of the same dirt. It should be very entertaining for you and educational, of course. So, Mark, you want to tee us up?
I will indeed. Everybody, this is a certain Anthony Willoughby that we go back, I think, Anthony, to 1991 when we met somewhere like Gloucester or Oxford in an office somewhere. The reason that I wanted Anthony on the call today was because with work that he will obviously start to get into shortly, but what I know to be his work around territory mapping and what I call tribal leadership. And there's a sector in my book about Anthony's work that highlights this whole piece about almost the number one problem in the world today is nobody knows what I called in the book, Anthony, their lion territory. They don't know to get on and off the Jeep and walk for 9 miles and the lions have already eaten. So everybody is kind of living in this perpetual state of fear. And then you get wars in Ukraine and you get all of these things that seem to be going on. But on a day-to-day basis, people are sitting there with the same lives they had largely before. So I couldn't think of a better person to have on a BizUnLearned podcast, that's somebody who can talk from the civilization point of view and how did we get into this mess? So where did you get to that point based on you off walking around the world meeting these interesting people?
So what would you like me to talk about then? Where the ideas evolved?
Yeah, well, just
well, I can tell you this much. I watched your talk this morning, your TED Talk, and you were very much about being adventurous and courageous. And I thought that was great. I thought that was huge.
Yeah, I think in our heart of hearts, it's a quote from Churchill that we most want to be known for being courageous. And I really, really believe in our heart of hearts, that's what we really need. And I think that's what we've actually lost, is that ability to be physically, emotionally, and probably most important, morally courageous in how we live our lives. I was brought up in Africa, in the Sudan and Egypt and places like that. And then I was dropped into an English boarding school and they taught two things really, really excellently. And that was effortless insincerity and arrogance without substance. They really, really perfected it and absolutely nothing else. And it told me I did not fit into this in any way and I was far too stupid, etc. And I sort of rather loved that idea that I was the outsider. And when I was talking about what would I do in my future, my housemaster just said, Anthony, well, let's get one thing absolutely clear. You're far, far, far too stupid to go to university. Would you like to apply for an exchange to America? Which I did, and it changed my life. I've been to all 50 states. I've hitched coast to coast. I've hitched in private aircraft. I've done everything in the States. And I've had a phenomenal time there because it sort of opened my life to what is possible. And when I was 22, I saved enough money and bought a one-way ticket on the Trans-Siberian Express and arrived in Yokohama by boat back in 1973. And, so I know that lovely feeling, and I'm sure both of you do as well, of that one-way ticket in life. That's all we've got. And arriving there with hopes and dreams, and they're still there. And I've spent 35 years living in Japan over the last 50 years.
Yeah.
I think if I'm to be honest, in my days, all I really wanted was a bigger gold Rolex than my father. And finally, I get my big gold Rolex and I feel successful. I pick it up from the Rolex store in Singapore. And I'd been going out with a girl called Sue. And basically, I'd gone to Singapore thinking I've got my gold Rolex. Everybody's going to find me attractive. And Sue quite correctly told me to get knotted. And I was absolutely devastated. And I, become sort of, so I've got my Rolex, I've got my freedom, I've got everything else. Why aren't I happy? So I came up with sort of peace of mind chart: desire to marry Sue, missing Sue, a feeling of acceptance, ambition, etc. And I scored this on 0 to 10. 10 if I was feeling I wanted to marry her. And what I discovered was if I went skydiving or played a really good game of rugby, my desire to marry Sue dropped dramatically. So I sort of became fascinated that clearly, if I trusted myself, belonging and recognition, my desire to marry, so my needs and wants were under control based on my belonging and recognition. And then when I was 30, I went off on a camel safari in northern Kenya. And what I saw is I saw the Maasai. And what I saw is they had substance without any arrogance. So I became fascinated. What is it? They've got courage, they've got respect, they've got responsibility, and they've got identity and relevance. So I decided to go to Papua New Guinea. So I met the Papua New Guinea ambassador in Tokyo. He said, go to my village. So I said, wow, I'd love to go to your village. So I turned up in the village in the highlands of Papua New Guinea. And I saw people running around with feathers, spears, osgrass, shields, and the whole lot. And I said, so why do you have so many feathers? They said, well, a big man or woman has many feathers, but a bigger man or woman hands out their feathers. And it sort of made me think of all those idiots in Tokyo who would talk about how having all the knowledge was power.
Sure.
And I just, I'm sure if you listen in the audience and yourselves, you know people who hand out their feathers and you know people who hoard them, right?
Absolutely.
Forever handing out feathers and encouraging people. So I could see that link. And then I said, so what about the spear? And they said, well, you can't buy it, you can't sell it, you can't give it away. You have to earn it and you have to accept the responsibility of the spear. And again, sort of all of those people I knew in Tokyo who had director on their name card, but they hadn't earned it. And therefore nobody would respect it. And again, I can ask you that question. You know people who've earned their spears, don't you? And you know.
I mean, and the tribal thing, I mean, you said a couple of things in here that are very key to me. One, the one-way ticket. When we left Ukraine, I left on a one-way ticket to Ecuador, and I've never been here before. And I had to go through Moscow with a Ukrainian wife during a war where the Russians were invading Ukraine and an American passport. I mean, it's like, I'm going to get fucked here. Okay? And not only that, but the watch thing too. I've had people talk to me about, a Rolex or something. And I'm like, yeah, but mine's got a compass and barometric pressure and altitude. And I live in the fucking Amazon. And we've got the Quechua Indians here too. So they've got the spear also.
Yeah, and they've earned it. So when I got back to Tokyo, I asked the ambassador, what is the single most important thing in his life? I think he'd say his house, his family, his car, something like that. I remember thinking the answer. And he just banged on the table, said, it is my territory. And therefore, I know my duty and I know my aims and ambitions. So I suddenly thought, shit, I've never thought of territory. What was my territory? A couple of bars where women were friendly and a BMW. And I started to realize that for the first 99.9% of human existence, our identity must have come from knowing what we're protecting. So it's really been, for the last 45 years, I've been perfecting a way to get people to think about what is their territory. And really the three questions of what are people really, really hunting in their lives? What are they protecting and what are they growing? And I think once we can realize what we're all hunting is love, respect, identity, and to feel relevant. That is what I think is we're really, really, really hunting. So once we can agree that is the mammoth on our map, it's then what do we have to protect and what do we have to grow? What is that community? What are the values we have to live by? And once we can work out what we have to grow, protect, and we're all hunting the same thing, then what I've discovered is everybody can then draw a map. And they can draw a map of their rivers, their mountains, their swamps, and who sits around their fire. And then on that
Sure.
map, what are they hunting? Who's around that fire? So we do this literally. Yesterday, I was with school children who are moving from year 6 to year 7 from primary to secondary school. And they were all talking about their journeys and what they wanted to achieve in their lives, to have a purposeful, well-lived life. Nothing to do with passing the exams. What is it in their life that is going to make them proud? And then at the end of the session yesterday, their parents came in, and you could listen to these children talk about their ambitions and it just made everybody feel so proud.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in 2015, I left Ukraine for a short period of time. I went back to Texas. Once again, was arrested for entering the country. But I went back to sell off everything. But I'm talking about artwork, because my family used to own a gallery, mirrors and frames actually painted in gold leaf, that type of thing. And I got rid of all of this stuff. But the American idea was, you lost all your stuff. And I'm like, I didn't fucking lose it. I sold it. I got to go somewhere else. I didn't lose it. I sold it.
You don't need trinkets.
No.
And this to me is the whole civilization con. We
Yeah.
are conned from an early age to believe that trinket acquisition is success.
Absolutely.
And that is the entire.
And it's a fucking anchor, because I'm seeing the world, but that house was a damn anchor.
Correct. And that is deliberate by government, because then you're paying your taxes, you're paying your water bills, you're paying your land taxes. So to me, this whole civilization thing is a complete and utter con.
Absolutely.
To subjugate people. So we've had 5,000 years of subjugation, because I believe, and really in any indigenous community or civilization only exists by splitting power, wealth, and status, and providing
This
you.
is like 5 flag theory. I mean, fuck you, I'm out of here. Yeah, I mean,
that frightens people. Because
absolutely. They can't find you. They don't know where you are. They're like, what the hell? You're not the normal person.
Yep. And freedom frightens people.
Yes.
It frightens governments. That's why they don't like nomads, because they have their own life. They have their own freedom. They have their own identity.
Like, my girlfriend's a government criminal lawyer here. And she's like, this president's really going to fuck us up. And I'm like, I don't understand why. And she's like, well, it'll affect tourism. I work online.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it can affect other people in the country. How? I'm a permanent resident. And it's like, you had your election today. I wasn't supposed to drink beer. Fuck you. My buddy owns the bar. We closed the door. We drank beer and watched the Super Bowl. I don't care about your rules. I don't care. And she's like, well, you're a bad example.
Yeah, but then you're not breaking any laws and you're living your life by your own core values. And this is what the whole thing of this barbaric education system. Pass your exams and you'll be successful so you can get more in debt. You know, and I went through all that at school, and I'm sure both of you did. You're stupid because you can't spell, and therefore you're a bloody idiot. There's nothing else about what your character is. And I think what I'm loving at the moment with AI and ChatGPT, etc., is basically all knowledge is now on our phone and information. So the only thing that's going to separate us is our character and our ability to look someone in the eye, to have an imagination, and have that courage to get stuff done.
Sure.
And therefore, no amount of education. What you need wit, style, courage. I don't know whether you know the word, but there's a wonderful word called gumption.
Oh, yes, I know it well.
The bold readiness to seize opportunities, not to complain, to step out, to make things happen. And I believe.
Well, I mean, you even see this in the basic team building concept: forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. You know, you cannot be afraid to have conflicts in a team, because that's what develops a greater product.
Yeah.
That's huge. And if you're going to go out and create something, you got to be prepared to do that. And like I said, I've had a fight here once before, a girlfriend, you know, with the cultural difference, because I did 4 wars and came here from Ukraine. And she's like, you're not a soldier anymore. And I'm like, you don't need soldiers until you need soldiers. and we fought for this for like 36 hours. And then 2 of her friends got beaten and raped, and she's like, I need your help. And I'm like, what happened to your laws? And she's like, they don't work. I need your help. And I'm like, so now you need the soldier.
Where was that? What country was that in Ukraine?
Ecuador.
In Ecuador, yeah.
And I'm like, why don't your laws work? And it's like, well, they were beaten and raped by their husbands. And I'm like, Anthony, so people ignore this stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's going to come more and more important.
Yeah, sorry. Because we go back, I could listen to you for days on this stuff because I love your material and stuff. But in terms of that whole backdrop that we've just painted, and whilst on the one hand, Bill's talking about not breaking the laws, but living on his own terms, and a lot of people struggle with that. And if you take that into your kind of walking around different parts of the world, gleaning all of this stuff, how does it apply? Because the education system is doing what it's doing. It's still doing it. So what's and people, mainly it's business people listening, but this stuff applies to just about everybody's lives. What's the unlearning point people you're really pointing them towards?
Well, basically what we're now doing as our vision is to put a map of ambition and clarity and hope in every hand. So literally we've done it. We've run these mapping sessions. These simple questions. What are you really, really hunting, protecting, and growing? The icon of the mammoth, the tree, and then the sort of the protection of the herd, and what is it? Your wealth, your values, you're protecting. And then literally down to your rivers, your mountains, your swamps. Who's around your fire? What are your feathers of wisdom? What are your spears of resources? What is your shield of protection? And it seems that everybody, we do it with billionaires, we do it with the homeless, we do it with executives all over the world. I was just yesterday at a school in Birmingham. What we've discovered is once someone can explain, this is the river I need to cross, these are the mountains I need to climb. What I actually believe we're doing is we're tapping into our genetic memory. And that is what we're working with neuroscientists, including one fellow called Edward Moser, who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 2014 for actually discovering there's a GPS in our brains.
Sure.
And I think, this is what we've been completely disconnected from. And that's why I believe we're so sort of mucked up, because a dog
This is true at a most basic level. I mean, I'm right on the edge of the Amazon, and I'm sitting here with people going, look at the moss on the tree. And they're like, what about the moss on the tree? And I'm like, what side is that tree? And he's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I'm like, that's north. Yeah. But they don't know this anymore. Education today is not education, it's indoctrination.
It is civilization, and that is the con. It is to get people to focus on trinkets. It is simple trinket acquisition opposed to contribution. Civilization is simply a colonizing methodology. Ever since civilization has been here, at least 30% of any society has been enslaved. At least.
Be it financially, be it in prison or whatever. I mean, the United States of America is the biggest prison state in the whole damn world. They got more prisoners per capita than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
So, Anthony, dig into that area again. One of the classic areas that we would hear from across business all over the place, and Bill, from his background, will have a particular view on this. There was a post on LinkedIn. It was my favorite post last year on LinkedIn. And it was a guy who runs a small business, and he had a little blackboard with just that week's requests from his employees for why they needed time off. And it's become my hamster needs a haircut excuse. The things that they were asking for time off for. So in Bill world, if everybody's on a contract, you can have time off to get your hamster a haircut, but your date doesn't change because everybody's accountable. So that whole play that now, and it's the same in the UK, but the States is so more available on figures on not liking your workplace, not liking your boss, not being engaged at work. What's from the way your work comes together around tapping into that genetic memory and through the map? What's going to happen to reinvigorate that work dynamic?
I don't know, because there's one core element that has to be there, or I think there are actually three core elements, which is what the Maasai have from the age of 3. And the first is we've got to create respect. And I think this is the real problem. I've been talking to Aboriginals in Australia 2 weeks ago, and you see the whites telling them what they're meant to be doing, that they should be acquiring trinkets. And they're doing, I don't need trinkets. So therefore, there's no respect for them. So I think, most people don't respect themselves because they've never had to, they've never thought about it. And they wouldn't even know what they respect in their lives or in who they are as humans. Then I think you've got to have courage. People have got to have the courage to actually want to have some ambition, to be relevant. I want to be relevant. I mean, everybody says, hey, I want purpose. But having purpose is meaningless if you don't feel relevant.
But they expect people to give them fucking purpose.
I know they do.
Okay? All right? They don't create their purpose. They expect someone to give them purpose.
Yeah, and this is where I go on to also with the whole area of well-being. I think you have to earn well-being. It is not a given. And if you want it, it's got to come from contributing. It's got to come from using the power of your personality, the wealth of your life experience, and that you're contributing. And if you feel you're doing those three things on a daily basis, therefore you can be relevant. Therefore, you've got a purpose to actually do something.
I helped this city a lot. You asked why I was here, not in Quito. Quito's 1.5 million people. This city is only like about 14,000. And I jump in a taxi. I don't even know who the hell the damn driver is. I'm just waving down the first taxi I get. And he sees me with my backpack. And he's like, hey, cowboy, what's up? You going to your girlfriend's house? Yeah. But I do a lot of things in the city if I can. When people ask for help, I give them help.
Relevant, which you don't in Texas, even though you might have the big house.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is really what I think we're all trying to do. So I think we're trying to be relevant.
Right.
And we have to earn it. You can't find in Texas. You got to go to a place where people still value that.
I mean, just did ask me to run for an office there, but I had a Ukrainian wife, and I'm like, sorry, boys, I'm gonna diddle out of here and catch you later.
Yeah.
But I was able to rebuild in a foreign country with basic principles.
Respect, responsibility, and courage, mate. Those three.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as I was rebuilding, people started to ask more and more and more. Hey, you can do this? Yes, I can. Can you help me? Sure, yeah. I can.
Yeah. And that's what we've lost. We've completely lost it. And that's the whole exam system. It's all focusing on the individual, and making them feel inadequate instead of how they contribute to a team project.
Yep.
So
absolutely. And this is huge. And in fact, this rubs across two different efforts that Mark and I are working on in the infancy stages, as far as, men today and as well as groups. And so, I don't know, Mark, if you want to touch on that, but this rubs against two of them.
I mentioned it to Anthony in obviously wanting him to come on the podcast because I know his work speaks to that issue that the world is very currently on in the broader context of everything we've talked about, but particularly the toxic masculinity Jordan Peterson world that is disenfranchising young boys onwards is a huge subject that I know Anthony's work speaks to.
Well, it does. The interesting thing is on the mapping, even yesterday, nobody draws social media, which I find fascinating. Children's maps, they don't have it on there. I think my children, just to give you a background, when they've all been sleeping in mud huts with me since the age of 8 in Africa on my research trips. And when they were 16, I sent them to live with the Maasai for a week and then go on other trips around Africa by themselves at 16. And my father, I asked him, how should I educate my children? He simply said, make sure they play sports in which they can get seriously hurt. But, I just think we have removed the ability to be male because we're told it's aggressive. Which is, again, what I'm trying to get into the whole area of relevance. Because if you're relevant, you don't need to be aggressive. The only time
Absolutely.
aggressive is when you feel irrelevant. And that's in Australia, again, there's a massive amount of family abuse, domestic violence. And that is simply because people are robbed from feeling relevant. So I think somehow we can make people feel they're valuable, that they've got these rivers, they've crossed these rivers, they can help others across it. And it's just as you've been talking about how you've earned your position of identity in your village. It wasn't just turning up. And I think there's another thing that I learned in Papua New Guinea, when I said, so how do you have influence? And you got to put in three things. You've got to put in equal amounts of your time, your labor, and your wealth of life experience. And the one thing you can't do is you can't buy time.
No.
So you actually got to put some time in the village. So you can't turn up in where you are now and expect within 2 days everybody to be coming to you, because it's against human nature. And I think this is really the problem for most men, is how can they be relevant? Because they can't put in their time, because nobody knows how they can be appreciated. Their wealth of life experience is not valued in most jobs. They're just told to do something, and they have no idea how they contribute. And therefore, you rob them of any of that identity. So until you can start looking at what their relevance is, what are they, and that they've got so much to offer. Once you've done that, then I think you can start building on what that map could look like and the bridges and the rivers to cross.
Well, and this starts at a very young age. You said 3. Yeah. And I listened to your TED Talk with the goat and 3 and this, that, and the other thing. And my girlfriend's got a son who just turned 4 and never had a male figure in his life until me. And so he wasn't sleeping by himself or anything else. She woke up literally this morning. I'm telling you real time, okay? Literally this morning. And she's waking up and she's like, he slept by himself all night long? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, where the hell is he? And I'm like, he's playing in his room. He's going to get ready for school. And she's like, how the hell did you do that?
Yeah.
But he's like, shit, big dog, small dog.
Yeah. But you've also probably shown him the respect and the belief that he can do it. And
right, absolutely. I'm like, fuck off, go do it.
Yeah. And that's human nature. That's what we all want, especially at that sort of an age. We want to be known that we're relevant, that we can do things on our own. We'll earn respect for doing that.
Yeah. I think what's interesting for us, especially I know the way Mark looks at it, we've traveled different avenues, but we got to the same fucking spot.
Oh, yeah, completely. Absolutely.
We touched on it when we spoke, Anthony, about the name that gets bandied out there is the whole Andrew Tate type thing. And we've got some young guys that work with us that are in their mid to late 20s, and they tend to be red-blooded young males that like female attention and all of that. And so they've played with this Andrew Tate stuff and utilizing women as just facilities. And so they're very up on the phenomena. And they've looked at it and they've experienced it, and culturally and social media. And it just shows, because they projected it out of hand. They almost couldn't help but go and look at it. But in terms of your work, what have we... Because obviously the headlines that people can be locking into are the map and the relevance and the roles in their life. But what are whether it's in the workplace or whether it's just generally, how do those, I'm thinking of Mario, they're 27 years old, because he's a great example of, he's met a lady that might be the one. When guys are 27, their minds think a bit differently. They appreciate different qualities in partners. But he's already had the conversation with her that he has things he wants to do. He's very ambitious. He's a little nomad that travels all around. He might end up out there with Bill knowing him. He's got a really clear agenda. And what he said to his lady friend is, look, if you want to be part of that, then hitch your wagon. But don't expect me to change, because that's what he's going to do. And that position is not something...
Is that Cody?
Sorry? No, this is he's older than Cody. Mario. Mario's been older than Cody.
Mario. Yeah.
Very, very clear on the things he wants to do. But that type of way he hasn't spoken to his girlfriend in a bad way. He's just told her this is where he's at, this is what he tends to do. But that type of conversation is almost frowned upon in the world today. He's not meant to be that clear in who he is and what he stands for.
Yeah, well, that's certainly what the education system would deem as being successful. So you leave school completely screwed up as who you are as an individual because of all these meaningless bits of paper you're meant to have got that say nothing about your character and only recognize your memory. And everybody's
right.
So so how do we develop the character? And that's what we've been doing. That's what you'll talk to Jane Bellis about, is what she's doing at the homeless centers with the men's groups and ex-prisoners and everybody else. You'll find it fascinating because that is the question. We give them hope. We give them a sense that they're relevant because they have crossed rivers. They have done different things.
Sure. I mean, that was no different than like the CIA showed up at my first degree college, but what they saw was third generation military born on a Marine Corps base.
Yeah.
And they're like, I know exactly who the fuck you are. And they're like, and you're top of your class too.
Yeah.
We need to talk to you. But that was a big piece of it. I mean, 3 generations and born on the damn base. It's like, yeah, come here.
Yeah, don't worry, I've got 8 generations behind me, and I've had the same conversation with the British Embassy in Tokyo.
Absolutely.
But you also go, because it's good for the ego, but it's bloody stupid to do it, because they couldn't give a shit about you, and you're just some sort of...
That's absolutely true, but I was 20 and stupid and ended up in fucking Saudi Arabia and Ukraine, and now I'm down in South America.
Right, yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing to do, but yeah.
When you referred to your very famous school that you went to, that you can put the name on it if you want, because, it's one of the top schools, arguably in the world, certainly in this country, it's a top school. And what are they turning out today? Because you're very disparaging about what they taught you.
I am completely, and I believe it's the same thing. But,
and are they still doing it?
I would imagine so. I mean, I have had nothing to do with it. I would imagine so. I mean, as soon as I hear the accent, all I see is effortless insincerity, and I'm normally bright and deep. That's all people can do. But, I think it is a bigger one. I mean, there's a school called Nord Anglia. You probably haven't heard of it. But
I know Nord Anglia well. I used to know the CEO.
Okay, anyway, there are 88 schools in that group now. Do you know what it has sold for?
No.
I'll tell you. It has sold $14 billion. Now, can you imagine 88 students, right? So if you imagine each school's got 1,000 students, that's, let's say, 100,000 students, is worth $14 billion. That just shows how you can rip the parents off. Because the only way that it makes money is from parents with a delusion that a couple of A-levels will actually be relevant for their child's happiness, job, and success. And that's why I think we've got to completely reimagine what is a successful life. Because for future, nobody's going to have a job going forward. Everybody's going to have to use their initiative, their courage, and what it is. That's what we got to teach.
Sure. I'm an advisor, a massive leadership program at Seton Hall University. And so I see this, and they get the #1 leadership program in America now. There are schools like George Washington University in Washington, D.C., where parents are starting to go now, they're thinking about filing lawsuits for academic fraud because I sent my fucking son or daughter to your school to be a damn leader, and you gave them puppies to pet and coloring books because they were having stressed out days about elections. What the fuck? You're not a damn leader.
Yeah, but this is my whole thing about how on earth can anybody lead if they haven't got a map? How can you? Because this whole thing on business leadership is complete bollocks. Because there's no courage is done there. It's all bloody manipulation and spreadsheets. And how do I get the next job? So all they care about is that. So it's not leadership. It is not moral. It is often morally bankrupt.
Absolutely.
So therefore, the entire perception of what leadership is. To me, we've got to put together, or I'm working on it now, a course that helps people feel relevant. Because in my opinion, the role of any leader is to bring out the best in anybody so they can feel relevant in any situation.
Sure, absolutely. And that requires a lot of self-confidence.
Correct.
Okay? A lot of self-confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, when I called my father the Marine Corps sniper from Ukraine during the Odessa massacre, and I said, they're coming in, he was like, get the fuck out of there. And I'm like, can't do it. It's only a 2-gate airport, and I'm locked in. I'm fucked. Okay? And all he told me was, before we hung up the phone, was make them pay for the privilege. If they kill you, you kill more of them.
Yeah.
And that was it. I mean, but that was a Marine Corps fucking family. Fucking kill them. But people aren't trained like that anymore. Okay? Yeah. They're just not.
I don't think we need to train to be killed, but we've just got to show that courage is a moral value that is rather
absolutely.
And that's, I think, the most important part of it.
And I came out of there and then moved across the damn world and started a new endeavor, and off we're going. But you got to have some confidence in your damn self, and that might mean staring down the damn gun or the sword or whatever. But people aren't trained like that now, with all the political correctness and LGBTQ XYZ shitball stuff. I mean, they're just not trained like that. It's sort of like, you're in my personal space. Piss off. How are you ever going to start a business that way?
Well, I agree, but the whole thing is I don't think we can necessarily sort of hone it down on what might be different. But the thing is that nobody's got any collective or individual identity, which is why they just associate with things that are, the number of likes on Facebook. That is because they've never been taught anything else. I don't think we need to. And what I'm looking at is what is a solution. And what I've now found with all of the different people we've worked with around the world, as I say, billionaires, homeless, or any student from the age of 7, they can draw a map, and that map is going to make them feel proud. And that map they can take to any organization, and they can say, this is what I want to do. So whether we're working with universities in Japan, it's part of their Changemaker program. What is my map of identity? To identity. What are the rivers of courage I need to cross? And then people have got context for conversation.
Mark and I have had recent conversations about, like, that's your thing. That's not my thing. I'm not that guy. I know who I am. He knows who he is. And I'm like, that's your shit. That's not my shit. This is my shit.
Yeah.
That type of thing. And that's important. Especially if you're going to build a team, you're going to build a community.
Well, I know my territory, therefore I know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And who's going to sit around the fire, or do we need to bring someone else around it? Because we know what we need. But the core values have got to be the same: respect, responsibility, and courage.
Right.
So as
what are your thoughts there, Mark? I was waiting for that.
The hat is
on.
on.
What are your thoughts there, Mark?
Well, look, getting you two on the same call, because you're very different, but you've equally so got very similar values in terms of the knowing who you are and what you stand for, and you both teach it in your own ways. And I guess me as the facilitator over the years, but having worked with the military, having been around people like Anthony, I'm often the one that kind of puts it across in the nice way, but equally so, that whole thing about that self-confidence is the piece. And what I've always, understood Anthony's work around, if you know your territory, you then know your boundaries and you know where you take a stand. Because if you don't take a stand, you fall for everything. And that's kind of the milieu that we've got today, that they don't know what's important. So you just kind of go along with the herd. They've even got answers. Some of our son's generation will come up with answers as to things that we would have done to work the system in getting jobs or getting further up the line. They'll just go, oh, well, it's all AI sorted, so you can't. So can you go round to that guy and knock on his door and ask him for a job? Can you actually take the action. So it's the, and Anthony also touched on AI. Well, it's going to take my job. On the other hand, it's going to free people up to totally and utterly take responsibility, do remarkable things. Because he's the non-military version. You don't get many people that from Anthony, you think about it, you've come at this from the different countries and been put in different places with very dirty jobs to do. He's gone from one of the top 2 or 3 schools in Britain, like real Harrow School, hated every minute of it, goes to his old-fashioned English-type family and says, "Mummy, I'm going to be an entrepreneur." And she says, I'm just quoting a line, I think
it's the most disgusting thing you could possibly be.
There you go.
Yeah.
What a line. What a line.
You're going to be broke and homeless.
Well, no, I mean, I've got 8 generations behind me in the British military. And in the British Army in India, the higher the status of the regiment, the less you got paid. So they could take the riffraff out. So that was the ultimate of the power, wealth, and status. The higher the status, the less the wealth and a tiny bit of power. So it just splits free.
Well, there's a lot of truth in this. I mean, I remember when I was being recruited to go to work for the government. I'd gone through a lot of school. I fucked off. I mean, I graduated number 2 in my class or so, and 4.0 grade point average. I got offered a job. It's a cheesy little job, and I fucked off to Tallahassee, Florida. And Florida State was like, "Dude, we want you to teach for us." And I'm like, "I didn't come here to fucking teach. I came here to drink beer and get ass. My buddies are here. I got a job to sustain me," and they told me I'm a walk-on for MIT, and I'm like, "I go to MIT." And within 6 months, my grandfather shows up, major in the Army, right? And he's like, "I'm tired of the government calling me about you. Take the next damn job." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll take the next damn job." But that was a completely different mindset than the shit that we've got today. And like the school situation that you talk about, I mean, I often think about, well, maybe I should have gone to MIT or something. But my life turned out just fine. And I probably would have ended up in some cheesy lab job if I'd gone to MIT. And I'm like, I don't want to go to MIT, but that would have been a nice little fucking name on my resume, that type of thing.
Well, what can be the next thing? Because I know you're fully engaged in this subject. Closing thoughts.
I'm 75 this year. I just think we've just got to realize we've got this one-way ticket, and we've just got to be courageous to an interesting life is the most important thing we can possibly have. And therefore, we've got to reimagine what is wealth and what is success. And when I asked an Aboriginal woman a couple of weeks ago, what is wealth, what is success? She said, wealth is your knowledge. Success is how well you share your knowledge with others. And to me, I think that is not a bad way of actually looking at it. So one's entire life is to acquire knowledge that is useful.
I have students all the time ask me, what should I invest in? I'm like, invest in yourself.
Exactly, yeah.
And he may well have named our men's work program, because one-way ticket kind of has a ring to it,
It does, doesn't it?
One-way ticket. So, Bill, take us out, if you will, as we end the 16. Thank you very much.
Well, guys, I hope that you all enjoyed that. I mean, Anthony, if someone wants to get a hold of you, how do we get a hold of you? You get a website or something?
Yeah. I'm Anthony at Nomadic School of Business. So ANTHONY at Nomadic, NOMADIC, School, SCHOOL of Business.com. And I would love to talk to anybody, because I just think we need to start a movement. Start a movement where people feel relevant. And that's what it's got to be. It doesn't matter how you feel relevant, providing you feel relevant, not because of being a shit, but because you're doing good and you're inspiring yourself and others. And that is what I think is relevant. So I think it is helping everybody find that journey to relevance. And I think that's what you were both doing really, really well, and how you've lived your own lives.
And just to sign off,
that's great.
I don't know whether you heard it, Bill, but just as a sign off, because obviously knowing Anthony a long time, What a name for a program, the I Will Not Complain, that as your starting point. And, well, we're okay. We've got no food, but we've got lots of wine. So we'll be all right. It's just a freeing way, isn't it?
I mean, a quick one. That is a true story. That is a true story. I mean, the company I Will Not Complain was inspired because we had 24 bottles of wine and no food on an expedition across Papua New Guinea. And, literally, you can see it there. I will not complain if I get eaten or trodden on by animals. If extra porter is employed.
There you go.
It is, yeah. And that is now the number one leadership company in Japan. I set it up. We just had the 35th anniversary. So you can just look at www.iwnc.com. And that is the number one company in Japan. You can also, if people are amused, they can put in Anthony Willoughby cock up in Google or Anthony Willoughby genius and some stuff comes up. So, it's just quite fun just realizing that, mate, life's fun. That's it. That's all we've got.
Well, guys, that's closing up episode 16. And like, comment, and share. We love the love. And this is Cowboy and Mark coming at you again. Let's get her done this week.
Thank you very much.
See you on the other side, the Englishman in the hat.